Welcome back to Tech, Tesla, and Trends. Megapack is my topic for the night, as I've pondered its impact upon the grid from a disruptive perspective. It has the ability to eliminate the need for peaker plants, depending on how it's deployed. But it also has the ability to soften the impact of outages based on where it is deployed on a given feeder. So if we were to deploy those out further beyond just the substation, it enables for to backfeed into those areas that might be impacted by an outage, depending on the cause of broken line or some other particular factor that would prevent feed from a substation. The logical need, I guess, from a perspective of, I don't know, just for making up a number, 1,000 meters, guessing roughly about 2 megapacks or so to back up their particular use. So, depending on the size of the substation, it's anywhere from, 5 to 15 megapacks at a given location. If we're looking at how you could deploy that, they don't all have to be deployed at the substation location. Some of them could be distributed out into larger subdivisions that might need that particular backup feed, and it has the potential to even out some of those outage prone areas. Now, how we would actually apply that is a good question, and one that I don't have great answers for. But Megapack itself provides the ability for utilities to have capacity in locations where they may not have sufficient due to either not a solid transmission backbone, or maybe not a solid primary backbone into those areas. And having that Megapack installed at one end or the other enables those less reliable areas to have a reliable backup power source, so that crews will be able to work on the impacted path of an outage, and the membership would not necessarily even notice that they'd been without power due to the existence of that Megapack in place at an outlying area along that feeder. So there's opportunities there for every community to look at and analyze, and that's where the needs of that particular community come into play. And there are people that analyze the needs and requirements. What is important to keep in mind here is that Megapack is enabling the offset of generation at some level. It also provides for that emergency backup capability. These two have a value that I don't believe has truly been calculated well for analyzing the impact of a battery in this particular deployment. And it's something that we're going to have to wrestle with as as utilities, I think, are coming up with how they're going to deploy and the format in which they deploy those batteries. You also have to keep in mind that as utilities begin to deploy those, there is a certain capacity amount that is going to also be deployed at homes. And this is going to also change that mix of requirements for generation as well. So the long-term perspective is that the power mix is going to change. But how quickly that is going to change is a question that is very much up to debate. There are some that are looking at it saying that it's going to be a very slow transition. And others that are looking at it, like Tony Seba, that say by 2030, it's all a done deal, that there will be no new traditional power built. It will all be solar, wind, or battery. There's arguments to be made on all sides. And ultimately, with the amount of money that's being thrown at this right now, due to the not so inflation reducing act, it does provide us with the funds that are going to be thrown at building more batteries, more transmission, more alternative options, probably a boatload of solar installations and wind farms. And these things are part of the conversation. But ultimately, you can't have solar or wind without having a strong battery network out there to collect and distribute that power that's collected from solar or wind in a reasonable fashion, because of the variability of those generating sources. That's why it seems to be a critical need at some point for every utility to have sufficient battery backups for the amount of solar or wind that they are generating from or utilizing from. And that's a question that each individual utility is going to have to answer, and one that is a viable question that must be answered for the future. So for now, this is just ramblings in my mind and questions about how this is changing the utility world. And it is one that we have to address long term. And there are some short term implications to this that I will endeavor to put some numbers to and help further explain the true investment value that Tesla actually has. From my perspective, that's one of the reasons why I invest in Tesla, is Megapack and the impact that it'll have long term. I believe Elon when he says that the energy side of the business will be worth more than the car side of the business. That's something. It really is. And this is one of the reasons, the primary, so to speak, backbones of, pun intended, of this whole conversation, is that Megapack is truly a source of income and revenue for Tesla. And it is one that is underestimated right now by all of the Wall Street types. They're not understanding the impact that this will have across the United States and across the world. Megapack is going to be installed at more and more and more locations and in greater numbers as the years progress. And it won't just be large installations. I think that there are going to be more distributed as the niche nature of this begins to be investigated and thought about by smaller utilities and by some of the larger utilities seeking to serve smaller communities in a better fashion. So there's a lot to discuss here and to unpack, and it probably will take quite a number of future conversations. But for now, that's a beginning on how Megapack will impact and need to be discussed and thought about from its disruptive nature for the electric utilities. And it's not one that any one of us has a really great grasp of at this point, but it is one that is necessary for us to think about, not just as consumers, but perhaps as overall citizens of the world, so to speak. We have opportunities to see the change that's occurring that will make the world have a more sustainable source of energy. And those batteries are particularly important because the current processes of generating from renewable sources is unreliable at times because it's not always daylight and the wind isn't always blowing. But batteries enable that variability to be addressed and compensated for. And Megapack is currently the most competitive product on the market, which is why it is growing so rapidly. Have a good night. We'll talk about this another day and we'll go from there.